Hi everybody. This is going to be a tutorial presentation on how to install and run XMarker software. XMarker software is an XLIFF 2.0 computer-aided translation tool. So this is meant to be a semi-polished but not super polished presentation. So if I stutter or make mistakes along the way, I'm just going to roll with it unless I make an egregious error, which you'll never see because then I will stop the tape and start over. So here's how it goes. This is the Windows installation. I will make a separate video for the Mac installation. So far, XMarker can run on Windows or Mac with relatively same user experience. So the first thing you'll do is you'll get this file to do your setup. It's the XMarker setup file. So like any other Windows application, you double click it and it asks, do we want to install it? We say yes. So it brings up this window. Welcome to the XMarker 0.9 installer. Okay, so the name of the software is XMarker. The version is 0.9, and the standard with which it works is XLIFF 2.0. I'm glad we got that straight. Here goes. Just a standard Windows installation. I'm working with two screens here, so it's defaulting to my other screen, so I'm dragging Windows into this view so they can be recorded. Hope that doesn't become too annoying. So standard Windows stuff. Who do you want to use this computer, this software? Where do you want it installed? Now this is a relatively important point that I want to stress here. The default installation is C XMarker 0.9. You can browse to put it in another location, and that's fine. I do not recommend installing it in the program files directory or the programs directory, because if you do that, then you'll need to run it as administrator, which you can do, but that's a little bit more hassle. So unless you have a good reason to not do this, I would recommend just letting it install into the default directory. Okay, so then it's going to say, do you want all of this stuff? And I'm going to say yes. And it's going to say that this is where it's going to install it. And I'm going to say, yep, I like that stuff. And so then it installs all of the files and so forth. And it tells us that the installation is complete. So we hit finish, and just like that, it's done. So I'm going to move this into my screen a little bit so you can see that we have the regular way to start this. So I'm going to start XMarker. So to recap, we've finished the installation and now we're going to run it for the first time. So we're just going to go ahead and run XMarker. And it starts up. There's a splash screen on my other screen, but I'm not going to move it into frame just because we've all seen splash screens. So when you fire up XMarker, the first thing you'll notice is you get this user interface. This user interface has been optimized for touch screens. So the buttons are big and touchable, and they all work. I'm going to record this demonstration, however, using my mouse. So it works for both purposes. So just to get you familiar with the look and feel, we have all of the operations having to do with files on this left-hand panel. So the idea is that you open XLIFF files or clear them or save them. You can set your translation memory file, set your terms file, set your change track file, your resource data file, and your XML file if you want to do some of the other. Each of these kind of has a specific operation that it kind of works with, and I'll go over those with the rest of this demonstration. But just most of your file operations are here in this panel. Your translation operations are in the translation panel, and then your validation. This is a validation against the schema and validation against the processing requirements. Those are two things that a valid XLIFF file according to the XLIFF specification must be able to do. Okay, and for more information on the XLIFF specification, you can actually go here and pick the specification. You can also pick your help file here, and there's a little about here that shows us the license and so forth. Anyway, then over on this right-hand side, we have the modules. So XLIFF 2.0, in addition to being able to translate files, has optional modules for people to use when doing their XLIFF process or their translation process. And they're all listed here, and they're all, again, specified in the XLIFF 2.0 specification. So I'll go over each of these. And then there, in addition to that, on the right-hand side, we have some XMarker utilities. These are utilities that are just available to you, just common things. If, for example, if you want to open an a vanilla XML file and convert it to XLIFF, you can do that. Similarly, you can convert the XLIFF file back to XML. You can decorate your XLIFF file with fragment IDs. You can segment your XLIFF file. You can do word counts. You can save your XLIFF file or export your XLIFF file to a TMX file, or you can save your XLIFF file or export your XLIFF file to a TBX file. You can print your file. When you open a file, it'll be locked, but if you want to unlock it, you just press this button here. And of course, zoom is pretty self-explanatory. It'll make the file in the viewing window larger or smaller. And then, of course, this area here shows you which file you have open. Okay, so let's give it a spin. The first thing I'm going to do is just do a regular translation of a vanilla XLIFF file. So I'm going to open the XLIFF file, and I'm going to just pick any file. By the way, this software comes with a set of sample files that will let you do each of these operations. The sample files will be in your install path. So if we look at our install path, why don't I just go ahead and do that? Go to my C drive, and I'm going to go to XMarker and XMarker 0.9 and XMarker files, and this is where you find all of the files from your default installation that you can follow along with for this demonstration. So as I said, the first thing I'm going to do is just a plain old translation. So I can open any of these files. I'll just open I'll open this one, bird. Okay, so this is that's a glossary file. Oh no, that's an XLIFF file, but it has the I see that it has the glossary module already activated, but that's okay. This will show us. So we have actually just one unit in the this XLIFF file. Many birds have unique bills. Okay, that's interesting. So I can say translate, and it will bring up my translation panel. So from here, since I only have actually 2 segments, it'll let me go from next to previous, first to last, and there are some other things that will light up depending on what you choose. So if I find that this writing is too small, I can zoom in on the source panel and make that bigger. If I find that the text in the target panel is too small, I can zoom in there as well, target zoom plus, and so forth. So the idea here is that I would want to change this to the translation. So I'm going to translate this into Z-ish. The thing about Z-ish is it looks exactly like English, except every segment is preceded with a ZZZ. Okay, so I'm translating this into Z-ish. ZZZ. Oops. Okay, next. And here I'm just going to say ZZZZZ, and I'll be done. And it tells me that it's overwriting that file. I say OK. And we now have a translated file that's in Z-ish. Now from this point, if I wanted to make a change right here to this file, I cannot do it because it's locked. So we caution you that when you use this unlock feature, you can unlock it and you can make your change, but this is kind of dangerous if you don't know what you're doing, because you can actually invalidate your XLIFF file by by doing something to the code. So we're going to say, whoops, I put too many Z's here. I want it to be Z, 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 and I can change that, and then I can lock it back up, and I can save my file. And it says, do I want to overwrite that file? And I say yes. Okay. All right, so I'm going to clear this XLIFF file, and that is basically how it works. It's just that simple. If I want to do more fancy things with this, I can do that. So why don't I demonstrate the first module, which is the Translation Candidates module. So I'm going to open a file, and I'm going to open the Translation Candidates file. Okay. And actually the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to work with the glossary, and then I'm going to work with my translation candidates. So it's just, there's no, you don't have to do it that way, but it works a little bit better for purposes of this demonstration. So this is just a vanilla XLIFF file. You know, I'm clicking in here and I can't edit it, and I don't want to unlock it. I just want to exercise some of these modules. So the first thing, if I want to do the glossary, I can try to hit glossary, but it tells me, whoops, the term file is not set. Please select a resource file and set it as glossary. Okay, fair enough. So I go into my terms tab here, and I say set terms. Okay, so I set my terms file, and again, this comes with the installation. I can go into my terms directory. I showed you before where to find these files, and I can find my term-based TBX file. Okay, and what that does is it says, here's your TBX file. Do you want to save this as your glossary? I can zoom in if I want to. Say, yeah, that looks pretty good. Okay, so I'm going to set that as my glossary, and it tells me that it set this file as my glossary. I can zoom in here. Okay, so these are my terms, my TBX file. Now if I go back to my module, I see I've got some kind of funny display problem here. I'm not going to worry about that too much right now. I noticed that what it did is it took the TBX file. I'm going to zoom in here a little bit, and it said that using the glossary module, it put the matches that it found from the terms file into this GLS namespace, which is the default namespace for the XLIFF glossary module. So I'm going to move it to source. Okay. And what we find then is, oops, here's the XLIFF file. It replaced the file we were working on with the glossary file. So now if I hit my glossary module, it says, oops, I've already done that. I'm going to cancel that. Okay, so I've got that already. Sorry, I lost my place a little bit there. So now, sorry about this display. I think it's just a silly thing that's happening while I've got my this recorder on. It's taking some memory and probably making a silly display. So anyway, we'll just ignore that. So now that I've got my glossary set, I'm going to actually set my terms, or my translation memory file. So I'm going to set my TM file, and again, this comes right out of the box under the TM directory, and I'll set my TMX file, and it says, do you want to use this one? Let me zoom in a bit, and I can see that it has some of the segments that I'm about to translate. So this is my translation memory. I'm going to say, yep, set that as my translation memory file. Okay, and it sets that as a TM. So now if I hit my translation candidates module, zoom in here, what it says is that in addition to the glossaries that it's already set, it also has set some translation candidates. MTC is the namespace for that. So for example, for this segment where it says Nirvana was an American grunge band from Aberdeen, we know that we found in the translation memory that 100% match, and we have in our translation memory this translation to German. So we'll say, yeah, we'll move that to source. Okay. So now we have all of our terms and our translation memory segments matched for this file. Okay, very good. So now if I translate, I see that I have the option. It says there's a match here. So if I view my match, it says, and I'll zoom in, it says that the the match here is this. For this string in English, we have this string in German. I'm going to say, yep, I like that. So I'm going to say, do I want to copy that target to the clipboard? Which I did do. It tells me that the following segment is now on the clipboard. I say OK. And so now, if I say I want to paste the match, I paste the match, and we see that it put that into the target frame of the translator. So if I go to my next, I see that I also have a view match here. I can view the match, but I'm just going to kind of quickly go through these. Next. Okay, this one doesn't have a match, so it just wants my raw translation. So I'm just going to say, again, translating it into Z-ish. I know that XLIFF is supposed to be bilingual. I've started to translate it into German, and now I'm translating it into Z-ish. But let's just ignore that for the moment. So, or we could say that the very bad German translation for this string is ZZZ, etc. And I can go to my last, or I can go to my first, or previous, or whatever I want to do. So I go to first. Anyway, if I'm satisfied with this translation, I hit done, and it tells me that it's going to overwrite that file. So I say OK. Okay, very good. And if I look at my XLIFF file now, I see that I've got some translations. That I accepted the first translation about Nirvana, and where did I put in my Z-ish? Somewhere around here. Yeah, so then I did my segment here and so forth. So if I'm happy with that, I can save this file, which I am going to do. It says, do you want to overwrite that file? I'll say sure. Okay, so now I've got that file translated. So I'm going to clear this stuff. Okay, I wonder, maybe I should, I'm just going to relaunch this program just to, because this is bothering me a little bit. So this is not part of the demonstration, but I'm just going to go ahead and do it anyway. Okay, so we're relaunching. Again, on my right-hand screen, which is not in the video, I see my really cool-looking splash screen. So I move this in here. Okay, so that refreshed the view. So I've demonstrated translation candidates and glossary. So now let's look at format style. So I open an XLIFF file. And, oops, I'm going to not go, well, yeah, this will be good enough. To my format style. Okay, so this is just a standard XLIFF file which makes use of the format style module. So you can read the specification if you want to learn more about that, but basically what it does is lets us make a just-in-time HTML rendering of our translation. So I'm going to go ahead and hit my format style button, and it's going to it made me this just-in-time HTML. Looks good to me. It took the format style attributes and it created this this just-in-time. One of the things I can do then is show it in the browser. So whatever your default browser is, it will bring it up in your default browser, which for me is on the right-hand side here. Oops. Yeah, it's not showing up in my browser, so I'm going to ignore that for the moment. That'll be fine. So then I can cancel out of that, and I'll clear this. One thing to make clear, this is not meant to be a round trip. In fact, the specification, if you're compliant with the conformance requirements, you will not use this as a round trip. Okay, so I'll clear that. The next one is metadata. So if I want to open to demonstrate the metadata module, one of the things that I'll need to do is I'll open a file, and okay, here's my metadata file. Okay, so this made use of the metadata module. It's got a bunch of stuff here. The idea is for this to convert an XLIFF file, a translated XLIFF file, into an email format, a sendmail email format. So I want to make one thing clear here. This particular, for some of these modules, the out-of-the-box behavior works just fine and will work for any file. For some of the modules like metadata, resource data file, these are configurable, and the good people at XMarker can configure these. But out of the box, we'll just see what this does. So what it did is it made use of the metadata module, and it created this email, this HTML mail, which I can then save it and do some stuff with it. But I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to cancel. Okay, our friendly right hand silliness is back again. I'm going to ignore that for as long as I can. So I'm going to clear this XLIFF file. And the next I want to demonstrate is the resource data file. So for this, I need to set a resource data file. So I'm going to set my resource data file. Which one is that? Terms. Terms change track. Okay, resource data file. And if I look into my resources files, what I see is that I have some resource data files. I'll open the German, and the idea is that we have this resource data file. I'll set this as my resource data file. So what this says is that this is an external file from which the XLIFF file will draw some information. There's a lot of different things you can do with the resource data module, but this is just one example. Okay, so I'm going to hit my resource data module. Oops, it told me the XLIFF is not in place. First I have to open the XLIFF file. So I'm going to open my XLIFF file. Okay. So this has the resource data module already in place here, and it's giving me some hrefs to some external files and so forth. So if I hit my resource data module button now, it says use translated XLIFF strings in the XML config file. So at the end of the day, that's what we're trying to do, is to make an XML config file. We say yes. So it created that file, and if I like it, here I'm going to zoom in, I can save that file, save as, but I'm not going to. I'm just going to cancel. Okay. And it looks like we have our silliness back again. So I've got change track, size and length restriction, and validation left to demonstrate to you. So I will do that. In fact, this is driving me crazy, so I have to refresh my XMarker again. Just it won't do this when you're doing it, but because the program I'm using to record this demonstration is kind of memory intensive, I think is messing with my display. It'll work just fine for you on your desktop. So where was I? Change tracking. This one's kind of straightforward. So first we open the XLIFF file. I'm going to go back to my C drive and my XMarker directory, XMarker 9.0, XMarker files in. Okay, so I'm going to get a file that's good for change tracking. So this is just a regular old XLIFF file, and it's got a note and it's already translated, some source and target and so forth. What I'm going to do then is I'm going to set the file I want to track changes against. So I'll do that with my change track file. I'll set the change track file. In this case, I'll get version 2, which is what I want to track against. Okay, so it says this is my change track file. Do I want to save it as a change track base? And I'll say yes. Okay, so now I'm tracking the changes in this file against this file. So if I hit my change tracking, it says that it's found some differences, and it's noted those in the change track. I'll zoom in. Change track module. Okay. For example, one of the notes said hello, the other one said hello again, and it noted that change, and it found some other change tracks. It looks like the translator, in this case, did something different. It did something different with the term, I guess. Okay, so I could move that to source, but I'm not going to. I'm just going to cancel that. Okay, so now I'm going to show you the size and length restriction and the validation. Okay, so I'm going to clear this file, and I'm going to open an XLIFF file. which one am I doing now? Size and length. Okay, size and length restriction. Okay, and you'll notice that this has been decorated with some size and length restrictions here that are consistent with the that module. So what we're saying is in this made-up scenario is that we want to make sure that our translations are tweetable. So the way Twitter works is that they use the standard UTF-8 encoding with NFC normalization, and they restrict the using that code base. They restrict it to 140 characters. So this is a translated file, and it's been translated into a lot of different languages: German, Russian, Chinese, and it looks like traditional Chinese and simplified Chinese. So some of those are going to be just fine, and some of those are going to be too big for Twitter. So by running our size and length restriction module, we see that, let me zoom in here, that in cases where there was a violation, the size and length restriction pointed that out. For example, the maximum code point is 140, or and we found that in the Russian it's 149. For German it's 188, but for Chinese it's 34 and 38. So you can see that this is a good example of how to use the size and length restriction module. I could move this to the source, but again, I'm just going to cancel. Okay, so the last one that we have, the last module we have to show is the validation. Okay, so I'm going to clear this file, and I'm going to open an XLIFF file that is set up to demonstrate validation. Okay, and we see that it has already been decorated with the validation module, which gives a bunch of rules. And if you want to know how to use the validation module, again, you can go to the XLIFF 2.0 specification. But there are a whole bunch of validation rules in here. Is present online, is present, is not present, starts with, ends with, etc., etc. So if you have a file with all of these validation rules written into it, then you can hit the validation button, and again it tells us which of these passed and which of them failed. So for purposes of this demonstration, you can just take my word for it that all of these are correctly, the validation is correct, and it puts the results in a XML comment. Okay. Again, I could move that to source, but I'm just going to cancel. So those are all of the all of our choices that we can do for our modules. But beyond the modules, there are some utilities that I would like to demonstrate for you. So the utilities come for free in this version of the XMarker software. They include XML to XLIFF, XLIFF to XML, fragment decorator, segmentation, word counting, export to TMX, and export to TBX. I'll demonstrate some of these. So the first one is the XML to XLIFF. So I'm just going to open an XLIFF file. Okay, go into my C drive, XMarker. Okay, and XMarker 0.9, XMarker files, inbox, and I'm going to I'm just going to open up an XML file, and let's get simple XML. I guess that's a good enough one. Okay, so oops. Oh, I need to open my. I see what I did wrong. I need to open an XML file. Okay, I got a little warning in my other screen saying that the XLIFF file wasn't selected. That's because I was in the wrong. Okay, so I'm going to set XML file, and I'm going to take my simple XML. I'm going to open it, and it's going to show me that this file here is demonstrated here. And do I like it? And yep, it looks pretty standard. I think, where did I say I got this? From the W3 schools at that URL. Okay, you can zoom in. Okay, so I'm going to set that as my input file. Okay, and there's my garden variety XML file, just a regular old file. So now if I hit my XML to XLIFF, what it did is it transformed that simple XML file into an XLIFF file, and it just gave us source, and it gave us some IDs that we can use to transform it back into its original format, which we preserved here in the skeleton. Okay, so this should work for any, no matter how complex, XML file, as long as it's well formed. And then there may be some interesting things that happen with entities and so forth, but the good people at XMarker can help you configure this if it gets too complex. Okay, so I'm going to move that to the source. Okay, now we have this XLIFF file, and we can go through all of these things that we normally do, but let's just cheat and let's look at some of these other utilities. So now that I have an XLIFF file, let's do our let's decorate it with our fragment IDs. Okay, so what it did, again, you can read the XLIFF 2.0 specification to find out how fragment IDs work. But for everything that can take a fragment ID, it put a namespace and told you what the fragment ID is for that. Or if it can't take a namespace, in some places, like for the inline elements, it would put comments, which I don't see that this file had any of those. Okay, so I could move this to source, but again I won't. So then let's actually do a translation. Okay, so let's translate this Belgian waffles to Z-ish, ZZZ, next this price, and change its currency from dollars to Z's. Okay, next. And this sentence to Z-ish. How many segments do I have? I'm going to go to the last one, and whatever that one meant to be. I'm sure it wants to be preceded with ZZZ, and let's call that done. Okay. So now we have our translated file. We want to move that back into into its original form. Oh, here's our XLIFF file. That's where our translation is. Okay, so here's our translated XLIFF file. We translated it into Z-ish, so you can see here. Okay, so then if I want to segment it, I could segment it. If I want to do a word count, I can hit my word count, and it tells me that in the source I have 75 characters, or 75 words. The characters are 470 in English, 484 in the target language. Okay, interesting to know. I could save those statistics somewhere, but I'm just going to cancel. What else? I'm not going to show you segmentation. I could export this to TMX, as you can see there, and now I've got my my TMX file I could save, but I'm not going to. But probably more importantly for this utility, now that I have my translated XLIFF file, I want to transform it back into its original XML format. I'll hit this XLIFF to XML, and it took all of the information that we saved in the skeleton, and it inserted the Z-ish in its place. So if I wanted to, I could do a save as and save this somewhere on my desktop or wherever I want to save it, but I'm not going to. Okay. Okay. So I think in a really quick way, I've demonstrated all of the features in XMarker. I know I went kind of quickly. Oh, I should demonstrate the schema validation and processing requirements. So if I open, it actually does these when it opens a file. It does this internally, so it won't let you open a bad file. But I'm going to just open a good file, and I'm going to, if I wanted, like let's say I changed something, and I want to make sure that I didn't invalidate it. I can do my schema validation. It tells me that this is still valid. That's good. And if I do my processing requirements, And again, you can look at all of the processing requirements in the XLIFF specification, but there were no violations here. If I open a file that I know happens to be bad core and modules, let's open that one. Okay, so I know that I've planted some errors in this particular file. In fact, I've planted all of the errors that it's possible, all of the violations that are possible in the XLIFF processing suite or validation suite that we've derived from the XLIFF specification. So now if I do a schema validation, it says, yeah, it's still valid, good news. But if I do a processing requirements validation, it's going to tell me that there are all kinds of violations here, and we've captured those in this file, all kinds of mistakes. Okay. I could save those. I could save my error report, but I'm not going to. Okay, so what happens if I try to open an invalid file? I'm going to clear this. I'm going to open bad. I'll bet you that's invalid. Or I guess maybe it's not. Oh yeah, okay, so it did open it, but it won't let me do any operations on here because it says that there's something bad here. And once I do that, this is locked out. All of these things that I could do, including most importantly translating, I can't do now because they're it's invalid. If I want to change, if I know what the problem was and I want to fix it here, I can. I don't recall what the problem was, or I can just clear this and open a new file. Good, and all of my buttons come back to life. Okay, so that is how to use XMarker in a nutshell. I hope that's valuable to you. As time goes by, we will make more professional videos with a more professional video maker. And XLIFF 0.9 is what I just demonstrated. Future versions of XLIFF may become commercial and may have different features, and we'll probably need to have an up-to-date video. But for now, thank you everybody. As I said, let us know if we can help you or if you have any more questions. Okay, signing off.